Good evening, everybody. This is Chairman John Zodi. I'm chair of your Indiana Democratic Party. I want to welcome you to our watch party in partnership with Indiana Stonewall Democrats for the vice presidential debate tonight between Vice President Mike Pence and the next Vice President of the United States, Senator Kamala Harris of California. What we are doing tonight is a broadcast in conjunction with the debate, in conjunction with our partners with Stonewall Democrats. And we've got a panel of folks on tonight who are going to offer commentary throughout the debate in a way that is between comments and such, so that we're all able to hear the debate and hear the good content that Kamala Harris will offer us, and we'll also hear the ideology from Vice President Mike Pence, something we all endured during his 4 years as governor of Indiana. Joining us tonight are Rick Sutton, the president of the Indiana Stonewall Democrats, will be joining us here shortly. Arielle Brandy, the president of Indiana Young Democrats, and she's also joined by James Wells, who's the vice president of Indiana Young Democrats. Excuse me, James. And then we'll be joined shortly, I believe, by Dana Black, our deputy chair of engagement. She is finishing up another event. Welcome, everybody, to our watch party. Thank you for joining us. Oh, there's Dana right there. Hey, Dana. Got on a little earlier than I thought you would, so welcome. How was the Stonewall event? Let's start there. And I've got both of you guys on. You just did a fundraiser kind of watch party pre-debate. We hope that went well. And how was it?
It was fantastic. We got to hear from our gubernatorial candidate, our lieutenant governor candidate, two of our congressional candidates who are LGBTQ+. And then we ran down the list of all those folks that wanted that Stonewall endorsement, which that list was bigger than it had ever been in the past, which speaks volumes to our candidates being concerned about our community and wanting to fight for us, whether they're in it or not, whether they're allies or actual members of the LGBTQ+ community. So that was exciting. It was a good time. We was throwing a party in there. You know how we do.
I'm sorry I missed it. So we are just about 7 minutes away from the start of the debate, which I think will begin right around 9 o'clock in Salt Lake City. One of our own, Pete Buttigieg, has been standing in for Vice President Pence in the debate prep with Senator Kamala Harris. And so we all bring different perspectives during our watch tonight. Rick, you've been a longtime State House activist. Dana, you've been newer on the political scene, but were a candidate in 2016 when Mike Pence was running for re-election and was running for vice president. Arielle and James, you're both young professionals. You're both new in leadership to Young Democrats. Arielle, you worked on the presidential campaign this year with Mayor Pete. So, what are we expecting to see tonight? Who wants to start? Let me just start from the top. Arielle, why don't you tell us what you're expecting, your perspective? You watched Mayor Pete go through some of these primary debates. What would you share with the guests tonight?
Well, I'm excited that we've gotten down to where we are now and that we finally have our candidates and we're putting all of our support behind Joe Biden and Senator Harris. And tonight I'm excited to see somebody that, we knew as governor and also that we know his policies and what he's done to our state. And now we're looking towards better leadership, and we know that we can get the vice president that we want from Senator Harris. And so I'm excited to see her shine and showcase, one, that Black women are now at the forefront of not only being the next president or vice president, but that they're able to showcase that they too can, compete in the political arena and can come out on top. So I'm excited to be able to see her as being one of the 20-something candidates we now have, now being one of the top potential candidates that we're going to make our next vice president. So I'm excited to be able to see her shine tonight.
Rick, speaking of some of those policies that Arielle mentioned with Vice President Pence, you've been around at the State House. You and I worked a little bit together on some of those things in recent years. But tell us about Mike Pence and what you know of him over the years and what you expect to see tonight.
Well, you don't have enough time, but more than anything else, I remember the last health crisis he faced as governor was an AIDS epidemic in Scott County, and he ignored it until he couldn't. So we have dodged a major bullet for the last 3.7 years that he's a heartbeat away, and we haven't had to call on him to be president, thank God. So I think Mike Pence has been awful for the country, was awful for Indiana. I can't wait to hear Senator Harris talk tonight about how a real leader would lead in times like this and hold Vice President Pence accountable for his performance as head of the coronavirus task force.
Thanks, Rick. James, you're a professional in local politics and government, and also on the political front. What are people with this administration? I haven't been able to watch the video tonight, but apparently President Trump was out in front of the White House a little earlier this evening and said something about a new drug that had been approved and he's got a cure. And what are fellow young professionals saying? I mean, what do they think of this guy and this vice president?
Well, I think at the end of the day, everyone is a bit tired of the shenanigans that's been coming out of the White House. And I think all of us are at a point where we just want some calm and some normalcy and some steady leadership in the White House. And I think Mike Pence has shown that he can't even keep his own guy in check. But when you look at it, you see Senator Harris, you see the stories, the lived experiences she brings with her to the table. Those are our experiences. Those are our stories. And I think we're looking forward to a future where we can have somebody where we can actually relate to in the White House, finally step up and provide that steady leadership we've been desperately needed for so long.
Yeah. Dana, you've been a candidate. You host Turn Left, your own show on internet-based, and now it's timely that it's that. You talk to candidates all over the state. What are people thinking now with 27 days to go, 26 now, I guess, with just about 2 minutes before the debate starts here? What would you say to candidates that are watching this tonight?
First of all, listen to the double talk and the double speak. One of the unique traits that the vice president has is that he has the ability to be calm when he ain't really telling the truth. And so he can make a whole bunch of sound really good. And we need to make sure that we don't get suckered into that very calm, sleepy Hoosier, Indiana feel and listen to what he's saying, because we already know that he is a poor leader and he has never demonstrated any success at all in whatever elected role he's been in. And so what I want to tell all those candidates out there, listen to your constituents. Those are the folks that you are going to be fighting for, no matter what level of government that you'll be working on. How you represent them is the main goal. It's not about pats on the back. It's not about how much accolades. It's about how you take care of your community. And if I was the chair or head of the czar of the pandemic task force, and I was the one that handled 210,000 American deaths, I'd be holding my head in shame. And I think we just need to look at the double talk, make sure we can sparse it out, learn not to do it, and be honest with your constituents. Thanks,
Dana. We're just about a minute to go here, and I think I've got my TV on in the background to see when they start going to the debate itself. I think one of the things that's been discussed one of the things that's been discussed a lot this week, is what kind of debater is Mike Pence, and I think we all agree that he is very disciplined. We're not going to see what we saw last week with the president. I mean, Mike Pence is a very disciplined talker. He stays on message, but it's what he says, and I think you all hit that on the head with what he says. What's going to come out of his mouth tonight? He is a prisoner of ideology. You may not be able to knock him off message, but the sea isn't that wide when it comes to his ideology, and so I think that's his strength, is that he's hard to get off message, and his weakness is what comes out. And so I think you all sort of hit that on the head. I know some of us have been to debates. Ariel, did you go to any of the primary debates during the primary season?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I had an opportunity to go to 2 debates and to be able to be in the background before and also, be there during. And it's an exciting time. But, like you said, you have Pence who can stick to his ideology, but then you have Senator Harris, who I know is going to bring the fire to really talk about the things that we need. And it won't be made up ideology or his own driven agenda. We're actually going to, hopefully, I'm pretty positive, going to get something out of this debate versus what we did last time.
Yep, I think so too, and I think it will be moderated in such a way, and these two will want to make sure that they're drawing that contrast. I think some of the things I saw with Senator Harris is she really wants to see that contrast, draw that contrast between not just herself and Vice President Pence, but certainly Vice President Biden and President Trump. Rick, how about you? What sort of parting thoughts do you have here before we get going on the debate? I want to make sure to give you some time here in partnership with Stonewall. Tell us what you want to tell everybody before we get going here.
Well, Dana was right. Pay attention to what he says, not just how he says it. He can be very, very calm. And throughout the Scott County debacle, he was calm. And he doesn't have the moxie that it takes to do this job. And he has to defend a horrible record, awful record. So let's see how he defends this. And I know Senator Harris is cool, calm, and collected. And it will show. When you're one heartbeat away, you have to be good. You have to be good.
You know, I think throughout this debate, everybody who's watching and our panelists as well, we're going to be hitting on certain things and look on the Facebook chat for different issues that are going to come up. Mike Pence and Donald Trump have a record. They have a record on healthcare. They have a record on workers' rights. We all remember when Mike Pence was governor of Indiana, he signed a license for people to work to make less when he repealed the common construction wage law. LGBTQ plus community, when certainly the entire nation knew a little bit more about Indiana, unfortunately, when we were making news for all the wrong reasons when we went through the RFRA debacle. Anti-women, they have a record on racial inequality rather than fighting toward racial equality. And you're going to see the corruption. I mean, we've seen since day one, cabinet officials resign, cabinet officials under investigation. So we're going to be sort of talking about those things throughout the debate. And as you see those things, we encourage you who are listening to put things in the Facebook chat yourself, questions you have, comments you have. This is as interactive as it can be without us all being in person. So please do what you can to comment and share your comments with us, and we'll get those and respond in the very best way possible. It looks like the debate's going to start in just another minute or so, from what I'm seeing, 4 minutes away at 9 o'clock. So here at 4 or 5 after, we're gonna start. But I'm just, everybody on the panel, I'm just remembering the Vice President's time as governor, and Rick mentioned the HIV outbreak in Scott County. Here we're going to the moderator here, so good way to end. Let's make sure we stay on the healthcare tonight as we're watching this. So let's turn it over, Zoe, if you can bring up the broadcast. I think the moderator is starting up. Thanks again, panelists, and thanks everybody for watching tonight. We'll be in touch during the debate. It's like we're at another minute.
For you.
Yeah, George, I'll be watching to see the role that race and gender play tonight. Unfair or not, Kamala Harris will be held to a different standard given the history that she is about to make on that stage. And on the Pence side, definitely watching to see how he can possibly defend the White House being this hotbed of infection that is right now, given that he is the head of the coronavirus task force.
34 cases now inside the White House, according to FEMA. The debate is less than 1 minute away. Mike Pence, Kamala Harris, moderator Susan Page of USA Today. We'll be right back with the start of the debate.
So while we're coming to a commercial break, I just want to reiterate with our listeners,
disruption. The wait is over.
I just want to reiterate to the listeners, what you're going to see out of Kamala Harris is not going to be like anything you've ever seen before, because you've never seen a woman of color on the debate stage. This is a woman who was a prosecutor and is used to looking criminals in the eye and know if they're telling the truth or not. So I am excited to see this. Did I say that out loud? I'm excited.
Pence is a criminal? Is that what?
No, as a prosecutor, she is in the habit of seeing, looking criminals in the eye and getting them to say and do what she needs. But please do not lose sight of the fact that what you're going to see is going to be different, because it's coming from a different human with different experiences.
Absolutely. And that's the thing I'm most excited about, because for the first time in history, we're going to be able to see a Black woman on a national stage going toe to toe with somebody that we have all personally lived, breathed, and experienced in our own state. So that right there for me has got me so hyped for this debate, but also for the country to be able to see this. This is setting the tone for what it looks like to have more women in these leadership positions, but especially more women of color.
Thank you both.
And I would say, like, as the son of a Black woman, as the grandson of a Black woman, I'm about to see my mom and my nanny on stage debating for the future of America, and I couldn't be more proud.
Yeah, we cannot lose sight of this. I mean, as I am a 50-year-old Black woman who, you know, sits in a whole bunch of marginalized community, including being left-handed, and it is just so awesome to see that there are no limits, that our Constitution is real, right? That there are no limits to what we can do, and you don't need permission to serve your community. And Kamala Harris is showing all those 5, 6, 7-year-old little girls, hey, I can do this too. I remember growing up, we never thought it was possible. Even though I sat in the room and they said, you too can be president, I looked around and was like, nuh-uh. But now we know that we can be president, and as women, we can run in the executive branch, and we can contribute to the greatness of our nation.
Should be going here soon.
They like to do a lot of the interviews. That they kind of did that last week. It was almost like 15 minutes before they actually got started.
On TV, it's already started on TV.
Yeah, I'm checking with the staff on the broadcast here to make sure it's going.
As the party chair, though, you know, you're watching this, and we also have a dynamic ticket on our state party, having a Black man at the top of the ticket and a woman as our LG. How is this moment for you?
Well, I think it's exciting, right? I mean, we strive to make the party more diverse, make sure we're reflecting the state. In 2018, we elected more first-time female millennial candidates than we had ever before. We had that many or more running. 2019, we made up the difference in a lot of suburban races. We elected Democrats in those suburban areas, Dana, and so I think we're had the last 2 cycles here where we've seen some success there, and making sure that we build the party in a diverse way and that we're engaging everyone, giving them an opportunity to get involved in the party is what we do and how we adapt.
John Thompson,
Go.
39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, just to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has and that I have, knowing that we have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since February. The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on earth. For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you. And our nation has gone through a very challenging time this year. But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first.
Give me a break.
Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now, Senator Joe Biden opposed that decision. He said it was xenophobic and hysterical. But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because with that time, we were able to reinvent testing. More than 115 million tests have been done to date. We were able to see to the delivery of billions of supplies so our doctors and nurses had the resources support they needed. And we began really before the month of February was out to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe we'll have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about. And I think the American people know that this is a president who has put the health of America first, and the American people, I believe with my heart, can be proud of the sacrifices they have made. It's saved countless American lives.
Senator Harris, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives that have been lost, families that are grieving that loss. And you know, the vice president is the head of the task force and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
no, but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to add, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I'm
speaking.
Yeah, you can have 15 more seconds, and then we'll give the vice president a chance to respond.
So I want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm were you when your children couldn't see your parents because you were afraid they could kill them?
Let's give Vice President Pence a chance to respond. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute to respond.
You know, there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts and in our prayers. But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great disservice to the sacrifices the American people have made. The reality, if I may finish, Senator, the reality is Dr. Fauci said Everything that he told the president in the Oval Office, the president told the American people. Now, President Trump, I will tell you, has boundless confidence in the American people, and he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts came to us in the second week of March, they said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans. But that's the reality.
Thank you.
They also
Thank you,
said
Vice
to us, if we
President
did
Pence.
everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice President
Now, one
Pence.
life lost is
Thank
too
you.
many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their family and their
That was a
neighbors
nice
first, our
word.
doctors, our nurses, our first
Thank you, Vice
responders.
President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice President Pence, you were in the front row in a Rose Garden event 11 days ago at what seems to have been a super spreader event for senior administration and congressional officials. No social distancing, few masks, and now a cluster of coronavirus cases among those who were there. How can you expect Americans to follow the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so?
Well, the American people have demonstrated over the last 8 months that when given the facts, they're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know first. And President Trump and I have great confidence in the American people and their ability to take that information and put it into practice. In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day, we surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans and Detroit. We told the American people what needed to be done, and the American people made the sacrifices. When the outbreak in the Sun Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward. But the reality is the work of the President of the United States goes on. A vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the President introduced Judge Amy Coney
Yes,
Barrett.
thank you. Thank you, Vice
But
President
at
Pence.
that, if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there.
Mother, he
Many of the
mentioned
people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested
Yes.
for coronavirus. And it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care,
Thank
the
you, Vice
Green New
President Pence.
Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader,
done.
speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in the food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked about
Vice
It is
President
asking
Pence.
too much of the people.
Look-
That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves to protect
Susan,
their parents
President-
and
No,
their
I'm sorry.
children.
Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
It's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me.
sure
For
is.
life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it, absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Vice President Pence, there have been a lot of repercussions from this pandemic. In recent days, the president's diagnosis of COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job that you hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had. Donald Trump will be 74 years old on Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be 78 years old. That already has raised concerns among some voters, concerns that have been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days. Vice President Pence, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
Well, Susan, thank you, although I would like to go back.
I think we need to move on
well,
to the
thank
issue
you,
of
but I would like to
vice
go back
presidency.
because the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives. The reality is that we will have a vaccine, we believe, before the end of this year. And it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is just, it's just unacceptable. And let me also say, you know, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration, we actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic. It was 2009. The swine flu arrived in the United States. Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu. 60 million Americans contracted the swine flu. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives. His own chief of staff, Ron Klain, would say last year that it was pure luck that they did, quote, everything possible wrong. And we learned from that. They left the strategic national stockpile empty. They left an empty and hollow plan, but we still learned from it. And I think the American people, I'm going to say again, can be proud
Vice President Pence, I'm sorry,
of what we have done. And Senator, please stop undermining confidence in a vaccine.
Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked Vice President Pence, which is, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call, asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud, and she must be looking down on this. Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work, about the value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And I think Joe asked me to serve with him because, I have a career that included being elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, where I created models of innovation for law enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first woman of color and Black woman to be elected Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice. And there I took on everything from transnational criminal organizations to the big banks that were taking advantage of homeowners to for-profit colleges that were taking advantage of veterans. And then, of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second Black woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, where I've been in regular receipt of classified information about threats to our nation and hotspots around the world. I've traveled the world. I've met with our soldiers in war zones. And I think Joe has asked me to serve with him because he knows that we share We share a purpose, which is about lifting up the American people. And after the 4 years that we have seen of Donald Trump unifying our country around our common values and principles.
Thank you, Senator Harris. You know, neither President Trump nor Vice President Biden has released a sort of detailed health information that had become the modern norm until the 2016 election. And in recent days, President Trump's doctors have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions about his health. And my question to each of you in turn is this information voters deserve to know? Vice President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say, on behalf of the President and the First Lady, how moved we've all been by the outpouring of prayers and concern for the President. And I do believe it's emblematic of the prayers and the concern that have ushered forth for every American impacted by the coronavirus. But the care the President received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their president, and will continue to do that. But I'm just extremely grateful. And I was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern. And I also want to congratulate you, as I did on that phone call, on the historic nature of your nomination.
Thank you.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year. And the stakes have never been higher, but I think the choice has never been clearer.
I want to give Senator Harris a chance
He
to
really
respond to the
got
same
answering that
question I
question.
asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed
he
health
really got out of
information
answering
about
that
presidential
question.
candidates,
He
and
didn't even
especially
answer
about
it.
presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge?
We'll say he got
Absolutely,
one.
and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000?" And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know who the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know what is influencing the President's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest? So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency, because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent over many, many years. The one thing we all know about Joe, he puts it all out there. He is honest, he is forthright. But Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond, Vice President.
Well, look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service as well.
Thank you.
But the American people have a president who's a businessman, he's a job creator, who's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes. He's created tens of thousands of American jobs. And the president said those public reports are not accurate. And the president's also released literally stacks of financial disclosures the American people can review, just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service, compared to President Donald Trump, who brought all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you, Vice
And
President.
turned this economy around by cutting taxes, rolling back regulation, unleashing
Vice
American
President.
energy, fighting for free and fair trade, and all of that's
Thank you,
on the
Vice
line
President
if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You know, that's a
are in the
good
White House.
segue into our third
great
topic,
segue.
which is about the economy. This has been another aspect of life for Americans. It's been so affected by this coronavirus. We have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the unemployment rate had declined to 7.9% in September, but the job growth had stalled, and that was before the latest round of layoffs and furloughs. in the airline industry at Disney and elsewhere. Hundreds of thousands of discouraged workers have stopped looking for work. Nearly 11 million jobs that existed at the beginning of the year haven't been replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, Blacks, and women. Senator Harris, the Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
Thank you. On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American people. And through a plan that is about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation. There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development so that we were an innovation leader on the globe. Joe Biden will use that money to invest in education. So, for example, for folks who want to go to a 2-year community college, it will be free. If you come from a family that makes less than $125,000, you'll go to a public university for free. And across the board, we'll make sure that if you have student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000. That's how Joe Biden thinks about the economy, which is it's about investing in the people of our country, as opposed to passing a tax bill, which had the benefit of letting American corporations go offshore to do their business.
Don't forget that.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, your administration has been predicting a rapid and robust recovery, but the latest economic report suggests that's not happening. Should Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year or more? You have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
When President Trump and I took office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. It's when Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy. President Trump cut taxes
we're not even
across
talking
the board.
about the millions
Despite
who
what
still don't have
Senator
jobs
Harris
right now
says,
because of what
the
they
average
have
American
done.
family of four had $2,000 in savings and taxes.
Or those who quit looking for.
And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans, the average household income for a family of four increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean, right after a time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height, we've already added back 11.6 million jobs because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy.
Let's remember, all of this could have been avoided had they done their job at the beginning of this pandemic.
Save 50
That's
million
the
jobs
thing.
through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this.
Opening up again,
Joe Biden and Kamala
go
Harris
out. That's
want
why
to raise
jobs are going
taxes.
back.
They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of.
We just spent a spending bill that was what, $1 trillion?
They banned fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland. And Joe Biden wants to go back to the economic surrender to China, that when we took office, half of our international trade deficit was with China alone. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers. Joe Biden says democracy's on the ballot. Make no mistake about it, Susan. The The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth and opportunity, 4 more years of President Donald Trump. 2021 is going to be the biggest economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Senator Harris?
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Reclaim your time.
Thank you.
Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year. Senator,
that is absolutely not true.
Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay. Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession, was responsible for the Recovery Act that brought America back. And now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit when they rode the coattails of Joe Biden's success for the economy that they had at the beginning of their term. Of course, now the economy is a complete disaster. But Joe Biden, on the one hand, did that. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who has reigned over a recession that is being compared to the Great Depression. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who was responsible with President Barack Obama for the Affordable Care Act, which brought health care to over 20 million Americans and protected people with pre-existing conditions. And what it also did is it saved those families who otherwise were going bankrupt because of hospital bills they could not afford. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who's in court right now, trying to get rid of,
along with Curtis Hill in court.
Exactly.
That you will lose protections if you have pre-existing
Jonathan
conditions.
winds up and get us out of that lawsuit.
Susan.
Yes,
and it's
we need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish, please. If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer, they're coming for you. If you love someone who has a pre-existing condition, they're coming for you. If you are under the age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're coming for you.
Senator Harris,
100% true, Senator Harris.
Give you a chance to respond.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster. The American people remember it well. And President Trump
had no plan for health care
and protect
health care now
conditions for every
you guys are trying to take it away.
But look, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were president
so rich
that you would
coming
ban
from him
fracking.
right now.
Says a guy who was governor of the state ranked in the bottom 10 for quality of health care.
That we will abolish fossil fuels. They have a $2 trillion version of the Green New Deal, Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal. More taxes, more regulation.
He's stuck on the Green New Deal. It seems like that's the only policy he thinks that that team has, the Biden-Harris team has.
And economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline. President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now.
We're on a decline. We're not growing. We're not expanding in the places that actually need it.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President.
I told you he could sound good when he's shoveling manure.
To a new topic, which is climate
change. He sound real good too, don't he?
And Vice President Pence,
this could be a climate change.
First question to you.
Okay.
This year we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the South. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf. And we have seen record-setting wildfires in the West. Do you believe, as the scientific community has concluded, that man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, and more deadly, and have made hurricanes wetter, slower, and more damaging? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. Well, first, I'm very proud of our record on the environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates, our air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded. And our water is among the cleanest in the world. And just a
what
little while
country
ago,
is
the
he
president
living
signed
in?
the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years. So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing.
But didn't he want to open up
The issue is,
protected lands that the
what's the
Obama
cause,
administration,
and what do we do about it?
closed
President
down
Trump
and said
has
you
made it
can't
clear that we're gonna
drill?
continue to listen to the science.
Now he wants to open them up.
Now,
He wants to
Joe
roll back
Biden
EPA
and
standards.
Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose the Green New Deal, which would crush American energy, would increase the energy costs of American
He's just
families,
making stuff
their
up.
homes.
Didn't they
Literally would
appoint
crush
somebody in
American
charge of the
jobs.
EPA whose
President Trump and I
job
believe that
before
the
then
progress that we
goes
have
against
made
everything?
in cleaner
Pretty much they hired Paris
because
Hilton.
we
That's
have a
it.
strong free market
You know what I'm
economy.
saying? They,
No, what's remarkable is
like
United
the
States
joy in charge of the post office.
CO2 more than the
He
countries
was a coal lobbyist.
Paris Climate
Yep.
Accord, but we've done it through innovation, and we've done it through natural gas and fracking.
See, he's not talking about how people's homes
Look
have
at
been
the record.
destroyed because of
No,
fracking.
Joe Biden says otherwise now,
Communities.
as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation,
But didn't he just say he wanted to get
actually
rid of fossil
steering toward a
fuel?
stronger and better environment.
Did he just say that?
With regard to wildfires,
Okay.
President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center. And even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually, as difficult as they are,
Thank you, Vice President.
there are no more hurricanes
That's not even the
today
name of the
than there
department.
were 100 years ago.
Thank you.
But many of the climate.
I think Kamala is
hurricanes
irritated
and
that she even has to sit
wildfires
next to
try
this
and sell
fool.
the bill of goods of a Green New Deal.
Oh, did I say that out
And
loud?
President
Sorry.
Trump and I are going to always put
Thank you,
American
Vice
jobs and
President
American
Pence.
workers first.
Senator Harris, as the Vice President mentioned, you co-sponsored the Green New Deal in Congress. But Vice President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. So first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact.
But I want
That
you
is a
to, but okay.
fact. I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to be about clean energy and renewable energy. Because you see, Joe understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms. Joe has seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa, whose entire crops have been destroyed because of floods. And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website and then took the phrase climate change off the website? We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan is about saying we're going to deal with it, but we're also going to create jobs. Donald Trump, when asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, you know, the science is telling us this, you know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know. So let's talk about who is prepared to lead our country over the course of the next 4 years on what is an existential threat to us as human beings. Joe is about saying we're going to
I actually know science. He knows quite a bit.
It's going to be about the creation of millions of
He
jobs.
knows a lot
We'll
of it.
achieve net zero emissions by 2050,
I've met science.
carbon neutral by 2035.
We
Joe
hang
has a
out every
plan.
weekend, especially
This
you
has
know
been a
during
lot
the
of talk
playoffs.
through the Trump
Science was a
administration,
riot,
and really
man.
it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. It's part of the science.
Wow.
You might as well ask him if he like gay people.
Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate
That's
last
all
week
he wants to talk about
that
tonight
on
is
day
taxes.
one he was going to
He will not
repeal the
answer
Trump
any
tax
questions
cuts.
tonight.
Those tax cuts
And
delivered
not only that,
$2,000
but you
in
notice the
tax relief
contrast
to
between
the
him
average
and
family
Senator
of four
Harris.
across
Senator
America.
Harris brought it back to
With regard to
people.
banning
Every
fracking,
time.
I just recommend that
What's
people
happening on the Gulf,
look
what's
at the
happening in
record.
her
You
state,
yourself
what's
said
happening in
repeatedly
Iowa,
that you would ban
they are
fracking. You
focused
were
on the
first
people.
Senate
Mike Pence,
co-sponsor of the
the
Green
Trump
New Deal.
administration are only
While
focused
Joe
on
Biden
themselves
denied the Green
and
New
their
Deal. Susan, thank
cronies.
you for pointing out the Green New Deal is on their campaign website. And as
Look
you
at
all
her
said
looking at
today,
him like a black
it's
mama.
essentially
You
the
just gonna
same
keep
now
on sitting in front of
because
me
you
lying.
co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the
And they
Senate.
gonna answer my
And you
question.
just heard the senator say
I
that
don't
she's
see
going to
the neck moving.
resubmit America to the Paris
Well,
Climate
that's me.
Accord.
I'm adding that
Look,
in.
the American people have
That's all you gonna
always
get right
cherished our
there. Did you
environment
see
and will
the eye
continue to
roll?
cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't
Is he
need
gonna
a
be stuck on
massive
this same
$2
train of
trillion
thought for the rest of
Green
the? I
New
mean, he
Deal
has
He's
not.
got, no, he has not.
He's not nuanced at all.
No, his talking points have been the same.
Joe Biden wants
Yeah.
us to retrofit 4 million
Thank you, Vice
American
President.
business
Thank you,
buildings.
Vice President.
It makes no sense. It will cost jobs. President Trump
Thank you.
Thank you,
will
Vice
put
President.
America first. He's going to put jobs first, and we're going to take care of our environment and follow the science.
Thank
But,
you, Vice
on
President.
the issue of jobs,
Senator Harris.
let's talk about that. The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade
You lost.
war.
You lost it. You lost.
What ended up happening is because of a so-called trade war with China, America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs. Farmers have experienced bankruptcy because
I
of
said
it.
that.
We are in a manufacturing
Hoosier farmers.
recession because of it. And when we look at where this administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration, they will have lost more jobs than almost any other presidential administration. And the American people know what I'm talking about. You know, I think about 20-year-olds. You know, we have a 20-year-old, a 20-something-year-old who are coming out of high school and college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me? We're looking at people who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay.
No, because baby boomers got to work till they 110.
American renters are
But they'll have health insurance thanks to Barack Obama and Joe Biden.
end of the
Right.
month. This is where the economy is in America right now, and it is because of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
Thank you, Senator
Absolutely.
Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you just 15 seconds to respond because then I want to move on to.
Well, I'd love to respond. Look, lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it.
Deflection.
Communist China through.
And Trump hasn't fought in Vietnam or
Anymore.
anymore.
Bones first.
Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts.
There he go with that tired line again.
100,000 manufacturing jobs. And President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut taxes,
you, Vice
rolled back regulation, unleashed America.
You could tell Senator Harris is irritated that she's had to dumb
yeah.
herself down for this conversation.
Exactly
yeah.
the kind of growth we're going to continue to see as we bring our nation
It's
through.
not, we got to be twice as good, work twice as hard, get half the credit, and we're sitting next to this. She's got to sit next to this moron.
It's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
Susan, I just need to respond very briefly.
15
please.
seconds and
Thank
then
you.
we'll move.
Thank you. Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry.
Come on.
Voted
Thank
against
you.
it. So let's set the record straight.
Osama bin Laden is dead and GM is alive.
We have as our next topic.
That's what Joe Biden said.
More complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the
That was a
one
mic
with
drop
China.
moment right there.
Yeah, that was.
A huge market for American agricultural goods. It's a potential partner in dealing with climate change in North Korea. And in a video tonight, President Trump again blamed it for the coronavirus, saying China will pay. Vice President Pence, how would you
They got over 1 billion people. How are we gonna make them
describe the
pay?
relationship with China?
Obviously, he not only doesn't like science, he doesn't like to count.
You have
No.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Susan.
Let me, before I
Thank you,
leave
Susan.
that, let me speak to voting records if I can.
How about voting rights?
Everybody
Let's
knows
speak
that
to that,
NAFTA
'cause you don't think people should
Yeah,
vote either.
let's talk about
thousands of
those.
American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border. President Trump fought to renegotiate NAFTA. And the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement is now the law of the land.
Isn't it basically the same thing as NAFTA, just renamed?
Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. It was a huge win for American auto workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you said it didn't go far enough on climate change.
No.
You put your radical environmental agenda ahead of.
I'm sorry, who shouldn't be radical about the environment? You only have one planet.
No, that is probably why.
The look she just gave, I'm ready. I'm ready for her.
We only get one time. Like, what?
More liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than.
I'm sorry, I need everybody to be radical about the planet.
So,
China. He's throwing out AOC and Bernie. I haven't heard Pelosi yet, but it's coming.
China is to blame for the coronavirus. And President Trump is not happy.
But they're not to blame for the response.
No. And how they decided to handle it.
The World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February. Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration,
I'm sorry, did he say dingling?
He did. He did.
Okay.
Joe Biden's cheerleading for China.
Okay.
President Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend.
Was that a Freudian closet slip?
And again, the American people deserve to know Joe Biden opposed President Trump's decision to suspend all travel from China. He said it was hysterical. He said it was
Thank you, Vice President
xenophobic.
Pence.
But President Trump has
Vice
stood
President Pence,
up
your
to
time is
China.
up.
We're going to continue.
Your time's up.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want
Cut his mic.
relationship, but we're going to level the playing field, and we're going to hold
Vice President
China
Pence.
accountable for what
Cut
they
the
did to
mic.
America with the coronavirus.
Thank you. Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked the Vice President. How would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Are we competitors, adversaries, enemies? You'll have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I love the uninterrupted at the end of everyone.
Administration's
That's a new one. They probably added since the last
has
debate.
resulted in the loss of
100%.
American lives, American jobs, and America's standing. There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden.
He didn't like that black man. I mean, the Muslim. I mean,
the White House, an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got away. They got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives. Let's look at the job situation. We mentioned before the trade deal, the trade war, they wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession, and the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed war that they called it. And let's talk about standing. Pew, a reputable research firm, has done an analysis that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, than they do Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. This is where we are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Failure.
Senator Harris, we've seen changes in the role of the United States in terms of global leadership over the past 4 years. And of course, times do change. What's your definition? We've seen strains with China, of course, as the Vice President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership in 2020?
So, you know, Joe is, I love talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, you know, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, you know, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as relationships. And so we know this in our personal and professional relationships. You got to keep your word to your friends. Got to be loyal to your friends. People who've stood with you, got to stand with them. You got to know who your adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends and embraced dictators around the world. Let's take, for example, Russia. Russia, I serve on the Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us Russia interfered in the election of the President of the United States in 2016 and is playing in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said the same. But Donald Trump, the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of the American intelligence community.
Yep.
You look at our friends at NATO. He has walked away from agreements. You can look at the Iran nuclear deal, which now has put us in a position where we are less safe because they are building up what might end up being a significant nuclear arsenal. We were in that deal, guys. We were in the Iran nuclear deal with friends, with allies around the country. And because of Donald Trump's unilateral approach to foreign policy, coupled with his isolationism, he pulled us out and has made America less safe. So, Susan, it's about relationships.
And he has no relationships.
Part of the strength of our nation,
except for with mother.
Military has been that we keep our word.
Maybe a
Donald
prenup,
Trump doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President, give you a chance to respond.
Well, thank you.
It is so refreshing to have Senator Harris on the debate stage.
Capital of the state of Israel. When Joe Biden was vice president, they promised to do that, and they never did. We've stood strong with our allies.
See, okay, he keeps talking about what Barack. You in charge right now, and it's a hot mess.
It's a hot mess. Asia Pacific, and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm.
No, you stood alone, so it seems strong because ain't nobody else beside you for you to measure against.
Of the Middle East,
it's like being in school, pissing everybody off.
Unleash the.
I wonder why everybody's mad at you.
Destroyed the ISIS caliphate and took down their leader al-Baghdadi without one American casualty.
Wait, we got Osama, baby, on our side. Don't worry about that. We got Osama.
For the death of thousands.
And when I last checked, us taking out Osama never put our whole entire national security at risk by making reckless decisions.
Never.
Two of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United States. Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with the other Beetle. The reality is that...
Did he say Beetle, as in John Paul, George, and Ringo?
Opportunity to save Kayla Mueller. Breaks my heart to reflect on it, but the military came into the Oval Office.
He gonna talk about the military?
Oh, yeah.
Kayla was.
He ought to leave that alone.
18 months, abused her mercilessly before they killed her.
Oh, no.
But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in,
they got Osama.
They moved 2 days.
Top that.
And her family, with a heart that broke the heart of every American, that if President Donald Trump had been president, they'd be.
Look at her face, like whatever.
Thank you.
Right.
We destroyed the ISIS caliphate. And you talk about re-entering.
She's insulted.
Deal. And the last administration transferred
She has to be.
$1 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President.
terrorism. President Donald Trump brought us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
And when Qasem Soleimani was traveling to Baghdad,
I thought Mike Pence was a Christian. I didn't know you were supposed to lie that much.
Trump took
Thank you, Vice
out.
President Pence.
And America is safer. Our allies are safer. And the American people know President Donald Trump will never have
Thank you, Vice President.
take action.
I would like to give Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of course, there are other topics we want to talk about.
I would like equal time.
Yes.
In other words, shut up.
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your daughter's case, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What happened to her is awful, and it should have never happened. And I know Joe feels the same.
See, that's all people have
And
to
I
do
know that-
sometimes
no,
is
I'm
actually
with
be human and apologize.
But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there.
Okay, let's get the facts, girl.
After
go
the
ahead and
strike
get
on
it.
Soleimani, there was a counter strike on our troops in Iraq. And they suffered serious brain injuries. And do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as? Headaches.
Headaches.
And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump's, where he has referred to our men who are serving in our military as suckers and losers.
Suckers and losers.
Donald Trump, who
Yes.
went to Arlington Cemetery and stood above the graves of our fallen heroes and said, what's in it for them? Because of course, he only thinks about what's in it for him. Let's take what he said about John McCain, a great American hero. And Donald Trump says he doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war.
But his punk behind had bone spurs.
When you want to talk about who is the current commander-in-chief and what they care about and what they don't care about, public reporting that Russia had bounties on the heads of American soldiers.
And they ain't talked about that.
It's somebody puts a price on your head and they will pay it if you are killed. And Donald Trump had talked at least 6 times to Vladimir Putin.
Vladimir
Never brought up the subject.
His
Joe
man.
Biden would never do that.
Thank
Joe
you.
Biden would, but Joe Biden would hold Russia to account for any threat to our nation's security or to our troops who are sacrificing their lives for the sake of our democracy and our safety.
Thank you, Senator Harris. This is such an important issue, but we have other important issues as well. And
Susan,
I want to make sure we have a chance
I really have to
talk about.
respond to that.
I'm
Look, she has
15 seconds because
Well, I got to
we're
have
trying
more
to
than
keep.
that. Look,
Well, I'm sorry, but Vice President,
Look,
you've had more time than she's had
the
so far.
slanders against President
Call him out.
regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry, Vice
My
President
son is
Pence.
a captain in the United
Yes.
States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve in our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous.
No, it's not.
Let
Thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say
President Pence.
that
Vice
the American
President
people
Pence,
deserve, Susan,
Vice
the American
President
people
Pence, I
deserve to
didn't,
know.
Vice President Pence, I did not, excuse me,
Susan, the
I did
American
not
people
create
deserve
the
to know
rules for tonight.
Joe Biden.
Your campaigns.
So he's a Christian that lies and can't follow the rules.
And cuts off women.
And cuts off women.
Moving from one topic to another, giving roughly equal time to both of you,
Go right
which is what I'm trying very hard to
Go
do.
right ahead.
So I want to.
Oh, thank you for your permission.
Which is an important one, as the last topic was, and that is the Supreme Court. On Monday, the Senate Judiciary
Here we go.
scheduled to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee. Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to
Voting
overturn
right restrictions, education restrictions, LGBTQ plus restrictions.
to the states. Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is
Stop
overturned,
reminding us.
what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home
Oh, we
state
already know what he did in Indiana.
all abortions?
We
You have
already
2 minutes.
know.
We're still paying for those lawsuits.
Absolutely.
But I'll use a little bit of my time
Ref
to
for
respond.
HIV outbreak, healthcare quality ranked in the bottom compared to our counterparts in other states.
Was responsible for the death of
And some of the
hundreds
most restrictive
Americans
abortion
to the count.
access in the state
The
that we're
opportunity
still trying to
came
climb out of.
before I'm headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate. And Qasem Soleimani is gone.
Are we back on foreign policy?
Yeah, because she talked about the Supreme Court. He went back to war. He don't want to talk about that. Women's rights,
Soleimani.
Handmaid's Tale.
It's really inexplicable. But with regard to Joe Biden, it's explainable.
If this ain't two-stepping around a topic, I don't know what is.
I don't know what
Yeah.
it is. She asked about Roe v.
Absolutely
Wade, and he's
essential.
back on war.
We have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect.
Here's the
American
thing about our commander-in-chief. He never wore the uniform of our country, and he tried everything to get out of serving. That's all you need to know.
I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And she's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience.
She is a
and
brilliant
a
woman
valuable
to
American
those
family.
who want to restrict
Supreme Court of the
more
United
reproductive
States.
rights just
hope
like
is, in
Mike
hearing
Pence.
next week,
And
unlike
they are
Justice
both
Kavanaugh
a threat to
received
that
with
for our
treatment from you and
democracy.
others,
Period.
we hope she gets a
And
fair
would help with
hearing.
the overturning of
And we
same-sex
particularly
marriage
hope that
in
we
our
don't see the
country.
kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before. I mean, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before, when Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern.
Don't go there.
Senator, I know one of our judicial
Because y'all don't like
nominees
Muslims, so why you care about anybody else's
attacked
religion?
because
How
they
you
were
gonna talk
members
about
of
Christianity
Catholic
when you
Knights
don't like
of Columbus,
nobody else?
just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and
Thank you.
pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President
So
Pence. Your
my
time
hope
is
is
up.
that when the hearing takes place,
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
that Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected.
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
Time to just cut the mics.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion? And you
That's two
have-
extremes.
Uninterrupted.
That's a
Thank
bad
you,
question.
Susan. First of all, Joe Biden and I are both people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith. And in fact, Joe, if elected, will be only the second practicing Catholic as president of the United States.
Because you know they got a moratorium
On
on
the issue
religion.
of this nomination, Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people. We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before, when this conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted. People are in the process of voting right
Early
now.
voting started
So Joe
Tuesday
has
in
been
Indiana.
very clear, as the American people are. Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like, literally in the midst of a public health pandemic, when over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the virus. Donald Trump is in court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I said it before, and it bears repeating. This means that there will be no more protections if they win for people with pre-existing conditions.
Come on.
This
Him
means
and Curtis Hill, they fight to take it away.
people will lose your coverage. It means that if you're under the age of 26, you can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore. And here's the thing. The contrast couldn't be more clear. They're trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Joe Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public option or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
Thank you, Senator
Let's
Harris.
lower Medicare eligibility to 60.
Thank you, Senator.
That's true leadership.
You know,
That's true leadership.
Earlier, Vice President Pence said the president was committed to maintaining protections for people with pre-existing conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care
Yeah,
Act.
ask about that.
It says President
Can't
Trump
actually say you're supporting it when you're trying to fight against it.
existing conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that.
Because they have no plan for healthcare.
They've not had health care since we passed Obamacare.
Specifically,
Republicans been wandering in the wilderness ever since.
protect Americans with pre-existing conditions to have access to affordable insurance if the Affordable Care Act is struck down.
Well, thank you, Susan. But let me just say, addressing the very first question. I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human
You know what?
I apologize for it.
No comment.
And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth, late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America. Now, for our part, I would never presume how
He does not understand that Planned Parenthood does more than just provide abortions to this country.
Of course not.
When you speak about the Supreme Court,
If you remember, him cutting Planned Parenthood in the state of Indiana led
are you and Joe
to the
Biden
AIDS
gonna
crisis
pack
in
the
Scott
court
County.
if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is
Absolutely.
confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court.
Yes!
You've had 9 seats for 150 years.
But you had slavery for 300. What that mean?
If you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules. Now, you
Change them.
The Republicans change the rules all the time.
All the time.
Change them.
American people would really like to know if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States.
I knew he was coming.
And you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win
I
this,
knew he was coming with this BS.
pack the Supreme Court to get your way.
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more.
Let's go ahead and
Let's
recap
go.
and do some more.
1864.
No, I'd like you to answer.
In 1864.
Speaking. I'm speaking.
I'm speaking. Thank you.
1864. One of the, I think, political heroes, certainly of the president, I assume if you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election. And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do.
Honest Abe.
Deserve to make the decision.
Treasonous Trump ain't Honest Abe.
In the United States. And then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now, and it should be their decision about who
So
will
she's not really answering that question.
this
That's okay.
most
She don't have
Not at
to.
all.
for a lifetime.
Thank you.
But I'll answer it.
Senator
But
Harris.
Gail will expand it.
Right now, they'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are going to pack
We'd
the
like to know if you're going to take away pre-existing
They don't
conditions,
get
but we already know
this
that.
nomination.
I think it's interesting he tries to demand
Gave a
answers.
non-answer. Joe Biden gave a non-answer.
Trying to answer you
The American
now.
people deserve a straight answer. And if you haven't,
You
figured it
haven't
out,
given one all night.
you are going to pack the Supreme Court.
And they talk about packing the
Somehow win
Supreme
this
Court and they
election.
trying to rush it through.
I got to tell you, people.
They were
across
waiting
this
on this
country,
talking
if you
point.
cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation of powers, you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald
You
Trump.
guys have broken all constitutional norms, and you want to tell
Yeah, let's talk about packing the court then.
back in the court, baby.
Yeah, I'm about to.
Ooh.
The Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as
I
you mentioned,
sit on.
and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal.
Kavanaugh's a mess.
People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is Black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing the court? Let's have that discussion.
Thank you, Senator.
Ain't no Black people.
Issue of racial justice.
I just want the record to reflect.
12 million Black folks, and you can't find one?
Can't find one.
Joe Biden will answer the question,
Thank you,
but I think
thank
the
you.
American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice
Because you
President.
don't like Black people.
In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency
Ooh,
detective
yes,
from
let's
Louisville,
get
was
to
shot and
it.
killed after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics
No knock.
investigation
Search
into her
warrant.
apartment. The police said they identified themselves. Taylor's boyfriend said he didn't hear them do that. He used a gun registered to him to fire a shot, which wounded an officer. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds into the apartment. They say they were
20.
acting in self-defense. None of them have been indicted in connection with her death.
Nah, because
Senator
that
Harris, in the case of Breonna
skin
Taylor,
folk that ain't
was
kin folk.
justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so. And I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family.
I bet Pence ain't talked to her.
And her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn what's going on out on the street so she could then become a nurse and save lives. And her life was taken. unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And it brings me to, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed, during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee
of an
armed, uniformed police officer.
Break it down.
And people around our country of every race, of every age, of every gender, perfect strangers to each other, marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law. And I was a part of those peaceful protests.
Come on.
And I believe strongly that, first of all, we are never going to condone violence, but we always must fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will.
I bet he won't even say her name.
Carotid holes. George
The question needs to be, Mike Pence, does Black Lives Matter?
Exactly.
That's right.
For police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform,
He ain't gonna say her name.
Get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana, and we will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana. This is a time for leadership on a tragic issue of unarmed Black people in America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me pose the same question to you. In the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done?
Say her name.
Interrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American.
Say her name.
He won't say it.
Taylor has our sympathies.
Oh, there you go.
Sympathy?
But
at least he said her name.
It's our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as
they throwing that brother under the bus.
You would assume that an impaneled grand jury,
like they always do,
got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think, look, and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. Justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed. I mean,
they tired of begging. They tired of asking you to.
Salt Lake City.
If I keep telling you I'm hungry, I'm gonna start crying. I tell you once I'm hungry, you don't feed me. I tell you I'm hungry again, you don't feed me. Next thing you know, I'm gonna start crying.
And what is it when sports fans destroy their city?
They're just a rowdy bunch.
Presumption that you hear consistently.
Yeah, we're right.
Kamala Harris, that America is systemically racist.
It is.
Joe Biden said that he
genocide, slavery, internment camps,
3/5, Jim Crow,
Dred Scott.
We fought a whole war about the question.
Black Wall Street.
We can just keep going. The list goes on and on.
President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats.
Talk about bills. They are blocking the anti-lynching bill.
The anti-lynching bill.
Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability.
And they are the one that dangle Tim Scott in front of everybody's face. They're one lone Black Republican senator.
Supporting our African American neighbors and all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership, we will always stand with law enforcement and will do what we've done from day one, and that is improve the lives of Americans.
Thank you.
Record unemployment, record investments in education, and will fight for school choice for all of Americans.
Thank you, Vice President.
I'd like to respond.
School choice. Did he throw school choice in
I will not sit here and be lectured
Yeah,
by the Vice President.
All right, don't lecture me.
To enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who was personally prosecuted. Everything from child sexual assault to homicide. I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage.
Only one.
Prosecuted for profit colleges for
You
taking
better put some
advantage
respect on her name.
And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week, the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists. And
Not true.
Honey, he is a white supremacist.
We saw it.
he didn't do it, and then
Sure
he doubled
have.
down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back.
And stand by.
And this is a part of a pattern, Donald Trump. He called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. He, on the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully protesting the need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches.
Tiki torches, because they was hard.
Epithets, anti-Semitic slurs. And Donald Trump, when asked about it, said there were fine people on both sides. This is who we have as the president of the United States. And America, you deserve better. Joe Biden will be a president who brings our country together,
Senator Harris,
and recognizes the beauty in our diversity and the fact that we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan.
Where's the media?
Collectively edit, just like
How did we get here?
Comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists. And
That was a swoop.
Repeatedly.
We don't want you to hurt yourself, Donnie.
He doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish.
So that's like saying, but I have a black friend.
He cherishes all of the American people. But you talk
and they black friends is Kentucky Attorney General Tim Scott.
Thank you.
I really need to make this point.
And we know how that goes.
Okay.
In San Francisco, when you left office,
O.J. Simpson was their black friend too.
19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites.
Oh, wow.
When you were Attorney General of California, you increased the disproportionate incarceration of blacks in California.
Just like Kamala speak.
That's the first time he probably had to say that, so he stumbled over it a little bit.
Put that back on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record speaks for itself. President Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President.
We fought for educational choice and opportunities for African Americans, all of our
Thank you,
sir.
We'll do it for 4 months.
Thank you. You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election.
But he attacked my record. I would like
Here we go on voting rights.
Let me give you 30 seconds because we're running out of time.
I appreciate that.
Only one party is trying to prevent you from voting.
As the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda includes what this administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only.
Thank you, Senator.
I would like to go through.
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk.
But he got to comment on her record and her own career, and you don't give her the chance to actually talk about what she's done.
Which includes, I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias because, yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe.
He's got implicit bias. Hell.
Reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done and the work we will do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President.
I will not.
Our record.
Don't talk to me like that.
What we have done.
That is my mom and grandma right there.
That's me. Don't talk to me like that. She's just more polished.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I'd like to pose the
Talk to me like that.
first. I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the
There we
election.
go.
He ain't gonna. I don't even know why we asking. He ain't got no choice.
A peaceful transfer of power.
See,
What
watch how he
step
dodges this
would
one.
Vice President Biden then take? What would
Don't
happen?
forget he was the chair of the
next?
Commission on Election Integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you,
And how did that
Joe
turn
and
out?
I are, I think, particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket. We have the support of Colin Powell, Cindy McCain, John Kasich.
Come on, all your people.
500 generals, retired generals, and former national security experts and advisors are supporting our campaign. And I believe they are doing that because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight for the integrity of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to joebiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power. And if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote.
Openly.
Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote. So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to—
I don't even understand why we asking.
Power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election.
No, you're not.
Because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of—
Some people think the earth is flat too, so you know.
Establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years.
And climate change is a hoax.
President Donald
The
Trump
virus is a hoax.
has launched a
Man, science isn't real.
From every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military.
Horrible.
We revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day.
But you don't stand with all us taxpaying citizens.
And they're proud of appointing all of these conservatives?
When you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election.
What?
When did we do that?
When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States.
Not my fault. He collaborated with Russia, had a bunch of lying friends that got indicted, and he got impeached.
The CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course—
did they bring up Hillary?
But you put the country through—
Hold on.
I bet Hillary's at home like, why my name is still coming up?
Let me dust that off real quick.
No obstruction.
Hey, Hillary, wake up, girl.
And then, Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress—
that poor lady ain't never gonna get to retire.
In the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words—
You were trying to extort the Ukrainians.
So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating—
Some people think they can fly
voting that'll create a massive—
without a plane, parachute.
And we have a free and fair election. We know we're going to have confidence in it.
They just admitted the suppressing votes.
It's going to be reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are 2 candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along?" And then she added, "Your examples could make all the difference to bring us together," end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond.
See, even the babies want
Pence,
better.
you have 1 minute.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question. And let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life.
She ain't got no choice if she want to keep living.
Following the news when I was very young. And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. And it's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship.
I'm sorry, are we broadcasting from another country?
Late Justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States. One very liberal, one very conservative. What's been learned since her passing was the 2 of them and their families were the very closest of friends.
We actually knew that before she passed away. They talked about it a lot when he passed away.
Debate vigorously as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight.
But you know, he's like Donald Trump. He discovers new information that's been around for 150 years.
That's what people do in big cities.
New to him.
All across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument, but we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, he ain't there for them 210,000 people dead.
Difficulties of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be that is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, you know, that brings me to Joe. Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle, working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president. Joe Biden has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You mean you have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality.
Thank all of you for being on the panel. Appreciate your comments. It was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
For a quick recovery to
Mikey Mike.
the First Lady and everyone who is
Let's fire this dude. Let's fire this dude once and for all and send him out to the pasture in Columbus, Indiana, where he belongs.
Debate in
I'm
Miami.
done with this guy. He's done with this guy.
And that is the end of the vice presidential debate right there. What a difference a week makes.
Before we sign off, everybody, anybody want to make a final comment?
Showed their personalities throughout the debate.
I'll go ahead and lead it off. Again, let's not let it be lost on us what a historic night this was in having the first woman of color, the first Black woman, the first South Asian woman debating on this stage, and that was significant. So there, like I said, there are lots of little girls that are seeing themselves in Senator Kamala Harris. And I know for a lot of our community, for the majority of Hoosiers and Americans, it's like no big deal, because you look on the wall and they all been white dudes. So it's no big deal. But for us, it's like, here it is, 2020, we still having first. We talked about earlier today how, VP homeboy is just going to just say all the wrong things, is cool and is smooth. He used to do radio. So he knows how to talk into a microphone. But he had nothing but Trump talking points, Fox News talking points. He didn't introduce anything new. He didn't offer up anything that was different than we've already heard. I think the fact that he wants to stand tall and proud on his coronavirus handling of that as the czar is abysmal. I want to give y'all something to think about. California has about 39,000 people, and they have over 18,000 deaths. Texas has about 29,000 people. They got over 3,000 deaths. What are those ish-hole nations that Donald Trump talks about all the time? Rwanda? They have 36 million people. I'm sorry, million people. 36 million people, and they've had 29 deaths. So tell me what one of those ish-hole nations is doing that's so much better than what this great, exceptional nation with all the medical and technology available to us. What is it that we can't do in 2 states? And I went comparable sizes on the states, right? Mm-hmm. What is Rwanda doing to have 29 deaths? An ish-hole nation. That's what they said, right? But they know how to take care of their people. Don't allow the smooth talking to get you. I like that Kamala was not going to be disrespected. She took all his microaggressions and shoved them down his throat. Y'all jump in. Let's talk about it. Why we got to sign off? Let's talk about it.
I mean, I think that was spot on. And that was the part for me that really stuck out, is that even though we've gotten to this point of her being on stage and this being a historic moment, we still saw how bad she had to fight to be able to get a word in, and how she as a woman had to stand up for herself on her own to talk about her career, the work that she has done. She still had to validate herself to the American people and in front of Mike Pence to be able to show that she's capable. And we also, like we talked about, we saw her had to kind of dumb herself down in order to fit in with his level of not being able to be where she's at. And, it was a great moment. I think she came out on top, not just because I'm a little biased, but she came out strong. She was hitting on the facts. She talked about what people needed to hear. And Pence danced around each of his answers. He never gave a clear answer or answered any of the questions that the moderator gave tonight. And I don't want people to be fooled by that, because you can. He's smooth. He's calm. He doesn't break his demeanor. But we know exactly what his policies have done to our people that we're still reaping today.
Yep. I hear you. You're right. And he didn't answer any questions. He danced he couldn't
even say climate change was his existential crisis. Literally, the planet is dying. No big deal. We're going to Mars.
Rick, what do you think? We lost you there for a little bit. You had some technical difficulty, but what do you think?
I don't know. Am I back yet? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I keep thinking about Jim Pruitt and Joanne Pettit, my den mother, who died this morning from COVID, and Michael Alvarez, my friend from Washington, D.C. We know what it's like to deal with a governor who ignores public health crises. We cannot afford any more of this. We can't afford any more. He was actually proud of what he's done as the head of the coronavirus task force, and I just don't get it. In addition to what he's done to my community, in addition to what he wants to do to women, with this horrible Supreme Court nomination. He's proud of things he ought to be hanging his head about. So, America, we're sorry. We're really, really
We tried
sorry.
to warn you, though.
We got a sucky record in my lifetime of vice presidents from Indiana. And hopefully we can turn this one back and he can go into retirement too. It's been fun tonight, folks. Thanks.
James, how about you?
So I'm sitting here.
Thanks, Rick.
Sitting here listening to this embodiment of bigotry, this embodiment of misogyny, and the antithesis of that, having to stare it down in its face at a moment of crisis and chaos in our country. I can't help but think I am not the only one out there in this country, and especially in the state of Indiana, who is tired of the last 3 years that we have had to suffer through. But also at the same time, with the weight of history on her shoulders, I could not be more proud to sit there, support, and watch Senator Kamala Harris carry that torch proudly across the finish line. Mike Pence needed to hit a home run here to shake up the race. He didn't. Kamala Harris was carrying the weight of history and this country's future in her hand, and she did that.
I mean, because Kamala was no Tim Kaine, right? Tim Kaine was like a yapping chihuahua. You drove me crazy. This woman is measured. She knows how to hit the facts. You know what I'm saying? And again, I think her soul was really like irritated at the fact that I cannot believe I got to sit here and debate this guy.
The ancestors, I think so. In spirit.
This is. I have graduated law school. I have won all of my elections. I've won all of my statewide elections, and I got to debate this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so insulting. But at the same time,
who better else
to do it?
To do it. Yeah.
Could be me.
Who better else when you have a man who mishandled an HIV outbreak in his own state and is now supposedly handling the coronavirus response for the White House? Who else to respond to a man who tried to ban same-sex marriage in his country up against a woman who was pushing to get the marriages going in her state when the Supreme Court said it is the law of the land?
You know what
Who better else?
You know what I'm thankful for? That damn plexiglass shield between them.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, we people of color dying at a much higher rate than, my white brothers and sisters. And so I'm glad we trying to keep us safe.
Well, she had to fight for that, too. She had to fight to get that.
I know. And then they wouldn't have. And as soon as they were announcing all of the new breakouts in the White House, she was being ridiculed by his communications director. But it just,
No, deputy communications director, because the communications director isn't home with the virus.
Right. But the bottom line is, enough with the gaslighting.
Yep.
Enough with the nonsense, enough with the lies. Don't tell me that you have handled this pandemic as best you could when Rwanda is doing much better than any one of our single states. So don't tell me that. Don't look at me and tell me that
He's
you
proud.
care.
He's proud.
Right. Don't tell me you care about the lives of Americans when you haven't addressed gun control, which they didn't even talk about that.
They did.
How about they didn't touch that? Where people are, they haven't, and you really did it. Nobody talked about 1619 and the fact that they're trying to whitewash history again. Now the people are waking up and going to the internet and watching videos and going, dang, that really happened? That wasn't cool. No, we're not gonna talk about that. We're gonna do the propaganda thing so that you think that America was just so. Listen, America is flawed. It has always been flawed. It started on a flaw. Everything about it started with the original sin wasn't slavery. The original sin was the genocide, attempted genocide of the indigenous people who were already here. The second one was slavery. But just because how something starts does not necessarily mean that's how it has to end.
Exactly.
Or it has to continue. So
and we have the opportunity to be able to change that, which we got on the topic of elections and voter suppression, which y'all heard. He just said that they are going to do what they can to be able to suppress votes. Yeah, and they're doing it. And we see it happen. Right. We see it happen here in Indiana. We have some of the strictest voting rights and accessibility issues in this state. And we saw that happen under his leadership. And now the country is going to be able to see that happen everywhere in all 50 states. And I mean, we just have to be realistic with the fact that it's going to be harder for us to be able to get to the polls. And once we get there, they're going to challenge the results every step of the way. Every step of the way.
Well, here's the bullshit alert. Friday midday, it'll get deep. You're gonna need shovels because he's coming here to vote. So
I'm glad I won't be anywhere by that, because you know what, he been around all them Rona people. I'm high risk, over 50. He's a walking pandemic himself. I'm not going to hang out with him and mother. I'm good. I don't want to do that.
Not without a full body condom. No way.
Well, on that note, let's recap. Thank you, Rick. So I mean, look, it was clear tonight. James said it. Mike Pence needed to hit a home run here, and he didn't. He didn't. It was very clear who was on the right side of healthcare. Very clear who was on the right side of
playing wiffle ball.
The LGBTQ plus community, women, on the right side of racial equality and equity, and that was Senator Harris. And so I think we appreciate all your comments tonight, all your participation. This was fun. We did have some raffle winners, so this was sort of a little.
Did I win something?
Just the hearts and minds of all those who were watching, Rick. You did not win money, but the raffle winners were Sandra Ryberg from Indianapolis, Carol Webb from Lebanon, and Mike Swanson from Carmel. So if you three are watching, we'll be back in touch with you to get back in touch with you about your prizes and all that stuff. But thanks for participating. I want to thank the Stonewall Democrats again for helping us out and partnering with us tonight. Glad you had a great event prior to this. I really do. This is my first debate watch party, and so I want to thank our panelists. Once again, Rick Sutton, president of Indiana Stonewall Democrats, Indiana's own Dana Black, our deputy.
You need to hang out with me more so you can watch more watch parties.
Our Indiana Democrats president Ariel Brandy and Vice President James Wells did a great job of hanging and giving great commentary for about 90 minutes here. So I want to thank all of you for your dedication to the party and being on tonight. So and all of Indiana Democrats out there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching this debate, and to respond to Brooklyn ourselves. Thanks for being participants in the political process out there. We got 26 days to get this done, and I know we'll do it. So thanks to everybody out there, and have a great evening. Thanks again to our panelists.
Hey,
thanks,
Andre Carson. Congressman Andre Carson, turn left tomorrow night, 6 to 7. Come on now, you know how to get my shameless plug in.
I will vote. We got to get our
votes out, y'all.
Yep.
Yes, we do.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
a good night.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.